We're recording and welcome everybody. This is the fourth meeting of the Specification Steering Committee, the SSC, of Baseline Protocol. We have definitely a quorum today. This is probably a record number of people at the SSC meeting, and we will be going through, oops, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Not be going through the whiteboard. We will be going through, here's the agenda. I'm going to just take 1 minute to go through the agenda quickly, and then, so as I'm going through this, please, this is your opportunity to add items that inevitably we've missed in the prep. So think about things you want to add to the agenda. We're going to go through the new SSC guide and proposed rules, mention some new members. And by the way, those new members are on the call. It's a large enough group. You're going to need to help me with that. I don't want to miss anybody. We've got a review of the current project list, a light prune on that project list. And I will make my phone stop doing that. Call to action, which around setting accountable members for projects and epics. We'll talk about that. And we're going to discuss a potential procedural improvement, an opportunity for outside SSC to, by invite only, present on subject matters. Bill's got some things to address, and for Bill Gleim, and we will review a particular GitHub issue. Anything else? And a 5 and a 4 and no, okay, good. Just as a way of introducing, one of the goals that we promised, Daniel and I promised in particular to come back with was, to have a clear structure for the Specification Steering Committee, and so that we can have a real regularized agenda. So we did a bunch of writing, and there will be a major push of new content to the docs site, baseline-protocol.org. And that list, that includes a number of nice new features. One is that thanks to Hudson Jameson and some others, we now have a joint Slack, Discourse, Telegram channel, so you can enter stuff into that channel and it'll pop in every location. And we'll start, there's a marketing and communication community that Jack, who's on the call here, Jack Wiring, and others are stepping up to be accountable for. We'll talk about accountability in a minute. And that list, so getting the Telegram and Discord communities involved, and also we have a discuss forum that Hudson is finalizing right now. So we've got all the tools. We got Medium is up, YouTube is up. We've got people that are behind getting, that are now permissioned into editing stuff and putting it on the YouTube channel. Really getting our act together. So people should feel pretty good about that, I think. So that's one change to the docs. Everybody will be able to see what we can do, how you get involved, where the front door is, how we add. And by the way, I think we're trending towards 400 people just on the Slack. And I was checking the numbers. They're not going down. They're going kind of flat to up, which is kind of impressive, given that usually these kinds of communities have a sort of a drop off. So that's not happening, it's going up. And in terms of daily actives, in terms of posts per day, it's pretty steady. I was expecting kind of a long tail kind of a curve, and we didn't see that. Specification steering, there's a bunch of new stuff here. We reviewed it with the TSC just today, and their input was that yes, we should stick with the 3 different Telegram, Discord, and Slack, and see if we can get those working. But the really nice thing is you can be on any one of them and communicate to all three at the same time, just by going into the community channel. Sound good? Community-chat channel on Slack in particular. I think on Telegram, because of the way it's set up, anything that goes in Telegram will ping to both of the other two. And right now it's the same for Discord. Good? Right on, moving on. I will push all these changes in 24 hours. There's a couple of things that I changed that Jory wants to go through before I do the final push, but then I'm going to hit the merge and it's going to be out there. Right. So there's a bunch of other changes, technical steering committee, maintainers, members. One of the things we're proposing is that you go from general public contribution by fork and pull request to being a member with, and there's still some discussion here, but either write access or read access, and then you'd have to be graduated to write access on the GitHub. SSC members need write access in order to do what we're going to talk about now, which is to have accountability for projects. And we'll discuss that now. So this is the proposed structure. Effectively, the organic thing is the SSC is composed of people who are accountable for things, for projects, and specifically for this dashboard. So if you have your name on one of these buckets, you're on the SSC. If we prune a bucket because it's nothing's happening with it and it's just become a dead branch, then, and you're only accountable for that one thing, presumably you aren't going to have a hard time with the fact that you're not on the SSC anymore. So it's a really organic process. Be accountable, get on the SSC. Don't be accountable, you're not on the SSC. I thought that was elegant. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? I'm just going to say nothing until the silence becomes deafening and somebody chimes in. Oh, tough room. All right.
It sounds good to me. Yeah, that works. This is Karen. Hi, John.
Thank you. Thank you for saving us all from the silence.
No, John, some of this is just wanting to push your limits and see how far you could take that. So congratulations.
Right on. Okay. All right. So, obviously, if anybody is not comfortable bringing up concerns or issues here, please either put them in chat or why is my chat not coming up? All right. Be advised that I can't see chat. Yeah. So that's the proposal, and we will go through the current list. I went through the stuff that we did on day one and did some edits, but now it's really game time. It's game time for everybody here to, and those who aren't, to, in the intervening periods between the meetings, making sure that, if we have a project on this board, that it's getting worked and that, that it's well documented, that it has epics, that those epics are getting done, that they're real, and so that if anybody's looking at the dashboard, they can be pretty confident that stuff on here is stuff that's real and that it's happening, or that the stuff that's on here is a placeholder for something that will happen in the future. Yeah. Sound good? Hey George, by the way, congratulations. The vote was. I think basically the consensus was I'd like to see you join.
Yeah, there was full stake I get. Yes.
Yeah, we're excited.
Okay, I'll be staking so that I keep myself honest. And I have a question, by the way, while I'm speaking. Because we are owning one of these group of questions here, I was thinking about proposing a specification for a tool that I'll probably start building. So I guess this call is the correct place to ask, what do you guys, or how do you normally proceed with specification of stuff? Like, do you have like specific rounds of going through with different people? Does one go for draft, or how do you go about specifying and writing specification on different tasks? Or is it still ad hoc?
No, it's funny that I'm just continuing this board from last time, but yeah, specs. Yeah, we have a specification section in the GitHub repo. I remember if it's called specs or standards. Brian set it up. Brian, if you're on the call, I think you are. I think we set up a specifications branch.
Yeah, specifications branch.
Yeah, and the location for the specifications is in the standards. There's a folder in docs called standards. So anybody can go in there, start writing .md and generating those specs. And there is a template for the specifications. And also, is Jory on? Jory might not be on. She was on the TSC call just a second ago. So we will, yeah, Oasis has a specifications template as well, and a tool. That's next on the list, in fact, to get covered. So by next time, we'll have that tool up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Should say this. So we were talking about on the TSC. We were talking about you know, priorities, and this project right here, the SAP demo that shows that basically knits together SAP and Microsoft Dynamics, looks like it's on track for delivery by the end of April, which we will publicize the heck out of it, because it's really, I think it'll be a real wake-up call for lots of organizations, including a lot of ERP and CRM companies and SCM companies. And so that's the very next thing. And alongside of that, we've got several use case projects going up: supply chain, trade finance, FRTBs, a really interesting one around COVID that's already getting some press. And we're hoping to generate a team for a hackathon. Balaji on if he's on the call. If he's not, he's in India, but he's been pushing this hard, but so has Bill and Heather and lots of other folks. And you go out and check I think it's Cointelegraph wrote a hasty article about it based on the fact that they saw the GitHub repo item, which tells you something. People are reporting off of our GitHub. That's interesting. Yeah, so those are all things that should feed specifications. I know that the COVID project already has 2 things that we hadn't considered ought to be specs that we wouldn't have noticed if we were just on the supply chain project. So I think the conjecture that having a small set of, or at least a small set of canonical use cases is important to driving the specifications. And then along that line, we have improvements to Radish 34, extensions to that demo, a general circuit that is being developed by Karthik and several other folks in the ZK community side of this, including Zach. And then Brian and some other folks are really interested and focused on getting that internal baseline server structure set up and nicely organized so that it's easily pluggable, that it's got a good message bus architecture, et cetera, et cetera. Brian, I think, Brian, are you on?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you want to comment on any of that?
Well, that's pretty much it. It's just about creating the right conditions for folks to understand where the protocol is and the boundaries between the protocol for baseline, and then how they can extend it and abstract it to their use case. And then, the appropriate mechanism, and that's sort of like this team or this meeting and the TSC meeting comes in, the mechanisms to folding those back into the baseline protocol itself. And then kind of getting that process up and running so that it's pretty easy for folks to understand how to take the library, the framework, and extend it to their use case and solve the problems that they need to.
Right on. So and then, this is only one of several things, but if you think about this as sort of like where the money is for different organizations, because presumably all of us are in this for enlightened self-interest, and we want to benefit our companies and ourselves. One product that seems to have money written all over it is Gastank. We've been calling it Gastank. Enterprises, there's clearly no debate about this. Enterprises are not going to want to hold a lot of crypto. A lot of them won't, in order to power these kinds of transactions. So there's going to need to be a Gastank service. The question is, when do you build and release that service? If you built it now, I think you'd be waiting a while for demand. Build it too late and you won't generate demand. It's an interesting problem, but that's only one. I only put that out there as an emblematic of the question of timing. What signals do we watch for to know that the next thing we need in the next plank in the plan needs to get nailed in? So I think this is something that the SSC really needs to be mindful of. And I'll pause for comment on that. Tim, this is something that you guys live every day. What are your thoughts?
My initial reaction was build a proof of concept version now. If you're still talking about the Gastank anyway, build a proof of concept version now that's easy and doesn't take a whole lot of work, and then just instead of trying to time the market, just let it come and see what happens. Put more resources into it.
It's sort of where I'm at, Tim. I've actually got an interesting demo for a Gastank sort of solution. I can share it soon.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that, because if we started that in parallel with some of the effort going on now, that seems like that could help literally add gas to the fire. Bad pun intended.
Nice.
Of baseline development, so you almost have an easy on-ramp for folks who want to spin up their own standalone, whether it's a Radish POC or something similar, but then the appropriate gas tank to help fund getting things going and actual setting up transactions and making it something that's useful.
Yeah, I actually have something working right now that it's just using the Rebasing test net, but it does basically subsidize the transactions when you set up a new project. It deploys all the contracts and yeah, subsidizes those transactions. It's pretty cool.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, Gastank idea.
I'll share it with you.
I like that.
Products. So
and yes, John, it was built way too early. That's very true. But hey.
No, that's nice. That's good.
Could you share it in the chat as well? I'd like to see it. It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, Karen. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
So, and the other thing, that the other vector here is, I'm now aware of kind of a surprising number of private product projects that, some of which have been fine with telling me about, and others are saying, rightly so, that we can't tell you about them. They're our private company projects, but that's exciting. So, that's probably yet another thing that needs to happen for some of these kinds of things. So, we're going to generate demand by people building products on it. All right. So that's the long and the short of this, the steering committee update for how to organize accountability. The proposal here is that if you want to be on the SSC, you send a note. We've got a new Slack channel called SSC Membership Requests. You put in your GitHub ID, your name, optionally your company, and you stipulate what or just very briefly state the thing you intend to be accountable for. And then we invite you to the next meeting. We basically say, yea, verily, if anybody wishes for that request to be reviewed by the TSC or the board before we say yes, then we will do that. Otherwise, that person or that group is on the SSC. Any thoughts? Cool. And so the new SSC member quick start would be just, make sure that within 24 hours of approval, you're going to be sent an email with instructions. You'll be given a higher level of rights in the repo. You'll have write access. That means you'll need to sign the Oasis ECLA. And you're going to want to prepare by going to the Zen Hub dashboard, which I'm showing here. Where did my Zen Hub dashboard go? And reviewing the things that are already there so that you're not being redundant. And if there is something you intend to be accountable for that's already there, get on the team and join that activity. Accountability does not mean that you are going to do the work necessarily, right? Accountability means that you're using your influence. People that are on this, there's folks that are pretty notable in their industries. The Tapscots have and their organization, the Blockchain Research Institute, has appointed a person who, if they're not on, are you on there?
Yeah.
You want to say a few things?
Yeah, sure. So I work a lot with the Tapscots and the Blockchain Research Institute. I also run a venture capital fund, and both their clients and my clients have been trying to use Ethereum for a while and have been struggling because of privacy and usability. And a lot of those people are now very interested in Baseline. So yeah, I'm very interested in what's going on here, and hopefully can help with some of the kind of messaging and pushing it out.
Thanks, Charlie. So yeah, that's a good example. It's not necessarily that Charlie's going to, write code in here, but using the bully pulpit and using, our ability collectively to say, hey, shiny objects over here, we can get a lot of work done. There's 400 companies out there that are, excited about doing stuff. 400 people, and the list of the companies that are sniffing around or are already involved, either secretly or publicly, it's quite impressive. So, all we have to do is say, hey, over here. Anybody remember the movie Witness from Harrison Ford movie? It's like that Amish barn raising, right? That's what we got to do. We got to get that barn raised. And so we got to say, hey, it's just an organic process of saying, hey, I need help putting this post up. All right, that's it. Does anybody think that we've missed anything for the SSC rules and regs?
Well, hey, John, this is Stefan. Just real quick, the SSC new member onboarding, does it have a link to the thing you said earlier around making sure that you are listed as an accountable person for any of these epics?
Yes.
You need to be someone linked, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's in the quick start section. But after you read it, Stefan, if you see anything that's missing on there, please let me know. Okay?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, since I've been here 4 meetings ago, right? I probably have to go back there and fill myself in somewhere.
So unfortunately, Gitbook we're trying to fix this, but I've got to do this on the call because I can't share this stuff without giving everybody access to it. If you have access to it, you can push directly to the public website without going through the maintainer review process. So I couldn't give a preview of this, but if there's no objections, in 24 hours, this will be merged to master and be pushed. Okay. Next topic, new members. So Charlie was already talking about the BMI or BRI. Who else have we got that is new?
The line chain people.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Lime Chain is new. Technically, Truffle is new. We ratified Truffle last time. So welcome, Tim. And who have you got with you there? It's going to be a long list, so forgive me for not being able to.
I've got Nick DeAndrea, our head of engineering. Previously, Wes was invited, and I think it was the wrong invite. Wes is our business guy, and he self-proclaimed that he could not contribute. So we brought the right person this time.
Of course, thank you for that. I'm sorry about that, Nick. My fault.
All good.
Welcome. I think, who else? Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on from there. If I didn't bring you up, please speak up. Okay. So new members, review of current project lists. So and a prune. So as you can see, we've got these projects sort of nominally set up. The big one that seems to be on deck right now is this SAP Dynamics thing. By the way, shout out to York and to Unibright and to Envision, and I'm probably missing some folks, but getting that together is really exciting. I think Unibright is taking the ball to integrate these different epics so that we can see a good roll up from the issues below them. So that I'd love to see that get locked in the next 48 hours if possible. York, do you have anything you'd like to say about this project? Mute, York. All right, I'll move on.
Hey, John, this is Dan. I just have a quick question here.
Yes.
Just kind of quickly talking about this particular one. So I guess I'm going to say my bad because I didn't see this particular epic. But I know in the governance documents, it's supposed to be linked to an issue, right? So George from LimeChain just opened up an issue tying the Dynamics plugin, right? So what I did was I created a new epic, but I don't see it here in the roadmap. I'm just asking, should I delete the epic that was just created and we'll tie that issue that George just created to what you have currently in the roadmap?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a chance to do a quick education, right? So you're saying that it should go into governance project?
No, I'm just making a reference to the SSC documents that you were just sharing. One of the sections talks about how epics need to tie with issues, right?
Right. So if it rolls up to a project, and you know, to be clear, this is imperfect, and the maintainers are doing a lot of work on issues that aren't tied to any epics right now. As the SSC gets better at this, we'll and as we have a tighter list of projects in high-level epics, those will get tied into issues. And I'm sure anybody that's been part of an agile process before knows that, you know, that nothing's perfect. But yeah,
I hear you, but this is a specific case in point, right? So
yeah, so we would just take a project level thing or add one, and then find the
there it is. I see.
Which one is it?
If you scroll up to the very top, you see I just created a brand new epic.
POC baseline.
That one right there, right? Now,
yeah, so that one would want to be in, and this is what Unibright's working on is right now it's sort of split between SOR integration tools and this demo. And which is nice because, I mean, it doesn't, you can have 2 high-level projects with epics that roll up to both.
Right.
But say we wanted to put it in here, and we should do this offline, but we can do it in here, and it's done.
So that's how it's done. Okay, cool.
Right, and then you just say it's going to get done by the end of April, because all of this should get done by the end of April, and there you go.
Gotcha. And then if you click into that epic, you could see that it's tied to the issue. I guess I just want to make sure that it's tied the right way.
Yeah, so it's sort of a feature and a it's a good thing, but it's kind of a hassle, is in that dashboard will only go 1 deep, which is kind of good.
That's okay.
Yeah. But it means that you have to go down in to see anything underneath the top level epic. So you go in here. There aren't any dependencies.
So you see under reference is where I tied it to the issue that George opened up. And I guess I just wanted to ask, is that the right place to tie the issue to the epic, or would you prefer it to be somewhere else?
This is fine. And I should think, and I'm just giving advice here. The other thing you can do is, because this is ZenHub, you can actually add the issues directly to it. So you don't have to do it just this way, but this is fine too. And that's the traditional way to do it, right?
How would you add the issue? I'm sorry.
You go into, of course I can't, I have to take
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on spot. I just figured since we're all here.
No,
take a look.
I was just doing this. Anyway, there is a way. It's actually not, when you're in edit, you can especially when you're working in an issue, you can add it to an epic.
Fair enough. Okay.
And then when you have an epic, you can add issues to it when you're editing or when you're creating. And I think if I get into edit, you can get in from there.
All right. Thank you.
Right. All good?
Yeah. The next this call was discussing the specific projects that we have underway. Am I right?
Yeah, ideally by next meeting, we can just, this meeting will be walking down the projects. I mean, now that we've got ourselves, it took us 4 meetings, but that's cool. That's actually ahead of the curve. We're pretty well organized. We have rules, we have governance, we have all this, we know we have channels, we have comms, and we have, an expanding group of people that are interested. So now what we need to do is just regularize. And the regular thing is we're going to walk into this meeting. We're going to, people are going to be ready with their projects. If there are too many to handle, we might, I think we could expand the meeting up to say 2 hours if it needs to get to that point. People can dip in and dip out, but we'll cover in a way, it's like a lightweight version of a sprint planning session. Right, but where the output isn't, hey, this is what people have to do because it's open source, but rather here are the shiny objects that we really want to spotlight. That will be the output of the meeting, and then we'll publicize those. Jack and others in the team will make a big deal out of that, point people at it, and say, hey, look over here, got a big plank to put up. Yeah. Anybody with nails, come over here.
So some of these have a very concrete deadlines. How does these get set?
So far, they get set by me pulling these little things back and forth. But I think we need to add rigor. But again, if you're accountable for something, you're setting the deadlines. And deadlines, anybody in development knows, right? Deadlines are, the run at.
Okay. So I guess that whoever is responsible for the ERP integrations and the SOR integration tools, I would just reach out to them and speak about like the deadlines about Dynamics 365 and stuff like this.
Absolutely. I think you're already engaged with the gang on that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yep. So I think it should be well established. I think the big shiny object right now, unless anybody wants to put it, there's really 2. One is the Dynamics SAP integration, and the other is I'd like to make a call to action that the Balaji Shetty, Bill Gleim, and Stefan Bauer and others have been noodling, and I've put in some input on this as well, on the idea of basically improving the COVID-19 contact tracing protocol with baselining. And there is a healthcare hackathon happening right now. And we are looking for people in our community to step up to help do that hackathon. I think it's quite exciting, probably make some good names for some people. And we're already making inroads into the folks that are already working on that on a global basis, on a national basis. So if we can show the relevance of baselining to solving some of the 2 or 3 real problems or potential problems with that use case, in terms of non-repudiation, not being able to say you were near me if you weren't, and not being able to say you weren't if you were, being able to baseline the test results so that you can't spoof them, and being able to use your contacts list not as something you have to deliver to the government, but as a list of topics that you're subscribed to, watching for on the mainnet, for a change in status that would alert you that you were potentially exposed, and then you would be able to choose whether or not you want to report that to the CDC. A little less creepy approach. So that's an interesting project, and this is my PSA to say, if you have folks that are interested in that, we're definitely going to mount a hackathon entry on that topic. So those seem to be the 2 shiny objects. Do we have others? Now's the time to push your favorite project.
Kind of like off the shuttle. How about you?
Point me to where it is on the project board.
It doesn't have an entry yet. You can talk about that there.
All right. So, so you want to? I'm mindful of the fact we only have an hour, but you want to do like a 2-minute elevator pitch, and I can add that.
Yeah, sure. Let me share here. Let me do that. Is that bad idea? So really, the elevator pitch is it's sort of just the easy button for baselining or for baseline experiments. It does container orchestration for the various runtimes. It deploys stuff to AWS and Azure under each organization and the org registry's own resources. So it actually, it would be suitable for production if we were able to get. It'd be suitable for production experiments. Let's put it that way. And then I think the real value prop is around sort of getting a safe space for these experiments, so that as the protocol rapidly evolves, the people who are actually in and around the experiments can feel confident that their investment will be continue. It will be able to they'll be able to extract value as the protocol evolves. So I think that's pretty notable. How do we capture that?
Right on. So I just added a baseline server fast deployment project. Feel free to rename that.
Okay.
And if you can get the relevant epics, yeah. I mean, shuttles would be one way to do it, but if you're leading the charge on it, get that one out there and see if other people follow suit with the other ways to do it. And you can get a diversity of approaches to that. I know that York probably would be quite interested in hearing more about that sort of thing.
Yep.
Okay. Light primitive project list. So are there any projects in, you know what, I'm mindful of time, so I'll say that, next time around, what we'll do is we'll have we'll pre-vet, we'll do the work to come in with a pre-vetted set of potential pruning candidates. and I'll take the responsibility to do that with others. So yeah, go ahead.
John, maybe, not sure if it's pruning, but maybe there is a second look to be taken on how to organize these projects. I mean, it just seems fairly hard to kind of see, if I'm a business person looking for these actual business functional aspects, where do I go? Because that's totally different than these more, non-functional aspects from a business viewpoint. The business layer, right, sees them as non-functional. The actual layers underneath, these become functional. So it would be fine. I don't know what the trick is, but I'm just observing. It's sort of really hard to see where we do the business-minded kind of thinking, and where we do the tooling and the engineering-minded thinking. It just seems a little scattered.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Anybody else have some thoughts about that? I'll point at Daniel and Kyle and Brian. We've got the TSC and the SSC, right? So I think and of course the maintainers are the first line for handling real engineering issues, and that there's a lot of work that's happening on that. Ideally, as we go forward, really starting next time, we should have a pretty good linkage between what the maintainers are focused on and being able to see that rolled up in the dashboard, right? So there's that. Eric, also, I know you've got thoughts about this sort of thing. There could be a project level thing right here called non-functional requirements, and we can have people stepping up to that to say, okay, I'm going to really be accountable for making sure that we have good project level efforts around non-functional requirements, promulgating them, writing them down, specifying them, and making sure that we meet certain testing environments. I mean, if we had White Block on team, for example, I'm sure that they would be all over that sort of thing. Thoughts?
It kind of seems to me, this is Dan speaking, seems to me that, with every project, just so we can kind of speak to what Stefan and everyone is saying from the business side, but also, John, what you said with the technical side, almost like there needs to be not an elaborate business case with every epic and project, but maybe some sort of, I don't know, a paragraph or two kind of outlining what are the business considerations that this is going to help out, and what are the technical, the considerations, so that we can speak to both sides of the fence.
It might actually be good to have a template for that. So it's really, so we could say, okay, regardless of the sector, if we're going to have a one slide page, you're going to have, exactly what is the business case? How exactly does Baseline solve it? Something out, just, some template. So it's really easy then for everyone else to fill their own kind of sector use case in.
So just to kind of add on to that one, I know that, so Stefan, myself, Karen and Jason have began to discuss the business value behind looking at the Baseline repo, along with using Radish as a reference architecture. John, I know that you started this other Baseline executive deck, and I think that we merged the two epics all together. But this is kind of, the beginning of the template. We didn't actually think of it as a template in mind, so I think that's a really nice call out.
Yeah, I think we should put the template higher up on the list. That was actually an action item from before, so we'll make sure that is done by next meeting. And I know we can work with Brian to make sure that we have that template is correctly inserted into the thing. But we did, I'll remind everybody, we did stipulate that the way we do these is primarily one epic underneath the project. The project is just a placeholder in ZenHub. It doesn't even have an object that exists in GitHub, which is kind of nice because that means we can play with buckets without messing up the GitHub too much, right? So we can put so I've been fairly fast and loose with adding project level things because it's just a little placeholder. The real rubber meets the road with an epic, right? So the step one is create one epic and then sketch out the whole, project opportunity. And that needs a template. But we said, stick with one epic, write it all up. That's what we're doing with the COVID thing. There's only one epic, and then it's going to kind of it's going to split and become more elaborate as it matures. So we need that template. You're right. We'll develop a template. We'll make sure that we'll work with Brian to get that injected. Sound good? I'll point out at the bottom here is a good example. Rebasing was something that nobody's on it yet, but you'll see that there's just so many things that have to happen before a rebasing, which is described as a way to reestablish an entanglement on a record if it's been lost. So if your database has been corrupted and you need to rebase that record with your counterparties, how do you do that? That's a function. That's a functional thing, that attribute that needs to happen. And you'll see that nobody has any thought that it's going to be done before, or that it's going to even be started on until into the June timeframe, maybe later. So that's a great example of where we can as a SSC say, both during the meeting and lots of meetings offline, say, okay, well, rebasing and what other features here? We've got people that are thinking about messaging. There was a big meeting with Nats, and it looks like the Nats team wants to come in and join us. Is that the way, an approach to messaging? I had a big, I think it's actually just been posted, a televised or recorded podcast of a conversation with Richard Gendel Brown about using Corda as a messaging protocol in Ethereum, which would crack me up and make me happy. So these are functional attributes, and then of course non-functional attributes. And each of them can be a project. And I know, like for example, Karen and Steve have been working on other projects, and I know that the healthcare team has been working on stuff. So some of those are going to be private and aren't going to be able to be put here because they're companies working on their own. Yeah. Karen, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that basically sums up what's going on at this time. So nothing more from my side.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'd say that the comment that we have a scattered list and that it's an incomplete list is correct. And the goal for the next time, that gives us 2 weeks, is that both severally and together we make this list a good list. And if we need a higher level document like a PowerPoint or something to sort of tie it all together and give it a story, we can do that as well. Would anybody disagree that that's a good priority for the next time? Now you can see the start of stuff, right? Corp identities in here, messaging's in here, gas pump, abstraction and generalization, kind of writ large, a workflow step tool, in other words, when you want to make a new step, like if you wanted to add invoicing to the Radish 34 demo, how would you do it? It'd be nice to have a little workflow step tool. So there's all these like ideas, and being on the SSC means you're accountable for one or more of them.
Yeah, and John, you had another screen up with some handwritten boxes in it, and where gas, yeah, that blue one there. I think what what I'm looking at that might be helpful is really translating this into an overall architectural view that organizes maybe around sort of main groups of capabilities. Like Gastank is probably somewhere in a capability bucket that speaks to mainnet integration, whereas there is a backend integration or SOAR integration where maybe that other piece. So what I'm trying to get to is really what are the 5 or 6 major big boxes on top where you can start organizing with, because organizations tend to organize themselves, according to the architecture of the product, right? So maybe that's a way to start it.
I think that's a great point. And Stefan, I know that you've got interest in this. I know that Eric has interest in this. So I did put an architecture placeholder on the project list. Maybe that's something that will, I don't mind that these things are going to, this is supposed to be an organic process. So I don't mind where we're at with this list. I would mind it if this list was where we were at next time. And if we can use sort of an architectural set of meetings between now and then, let's do it. We're probably ripe for that, because I've been watching what's going on with the maintainers, and they're really getting they really are getting their agenda together. So it's important that we join those two lines. Bill, would you like to address your issue?
Let's push that to next week. I have jackhammers and jets on this end.
Okay. All right, we'll do. And I think 115 is definition of mainnet. Daniel, that was one you wanted to bring up. Daniel?
Hey, I'm sorry about that. I just got another call, but I'm looking at the Zoom screen, and I'm guessing that you wanted me to chat about this.
Yeah, this was on the agenda. You wanted to bring this up, maybe do a PSA for it.
Yeah, and we only have a couple minutes. I have a hard stop here. I got to jump off in 3, but I think that this is just important for us to establish a baseline, pun intended, for what it is that we have defined as mainnet, right? So, and I'm just going to put it out there, for better or for worse. I know that there's some documentation that I've read in the past that said that, and this is, I want to date back let's say like a year ago, that if you're dealing with a private blockchain, right, the shared ledger among the consortium members, that's considered to be mainnet. It's not capital M mainnet, right? It's not public Ethereum. But at one point that was documented in some of the things I was reading as a mainnet. The definition that we have in the baseline docs of mainnet means, publicly accessible, yada, yada. And I think that we're referring specifically to public Ethereum. I just think that it would be important for us to just put down the right taxonomy as what do we define as mainnet, which is a very critical piece to the beginning of baselining. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Is there an action?
The action is that I'd like for us to come up with a consensus as to what this definition is. I don't know where we would put that. I don't know if it's just an agreement and we just, we just discuss it. I'm not proposing that we need to change it even, right? I just think that we need to just establish, the right taxonomy so that we know that when we're talking about mainnet, we're talking about public. Or does it apply?
Could we make this kinetic by adding a slide to the executive overview thing that says, and then somebody can take a swing at it, and then we can all pound on it.
Sure, and it's like if it's If it's available to public blockchains, well, then which public blockchains are excluded from it without having to mention any names, right? I'm not trying to get into that conversation, but what I'm saying is that it's good for all of us that are on the SSC to know what it is that we're talking about, right? Taxonomy is important.
When Charlie joined, I was talking with him about this opportunity. I think, one of the things that, and Charlie, this is a project you could put on the board to say, get executives in big companies to not be scared of mainnet, right? One of the things we need to do that is a good deck that explains why they shouldn't be scared about the mainnet anymore. And I know that's partly the deck that we're working on, but maybe, Daniel, your point here is they're going to need to know what it means to be not scared of the mainnet. So they're going to need the definition.
Even simpler, right? The simpler part, what I'm trying to get at is what is the mainnet that we're talking about? Everyone has a different view, right? You look at one color and you could say it's dark red, it's light red, or whatever, right? But let's all just make sure that we're talking about the same thing.
Right on.
Yeah.
So Charlie, maybe you'll have some interest in this one. And also, I think that there's two places where the output of that thinking can go. One is in that deck. The other is in the spec.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, by the way, if anybody doesn't know, Brian has made a fork or a branch called specs or standards. I'm not sure which one it was, but
specification.
Specifications. And so you can work in that branch and go into the docs folder, into the standards folder. And that's where you can write any of your specs. You can contribute any of the spec work you want to be doing.
Hey John, it's in the docs, and it's in it's a folder called specifications. I put a link to it a little bit a couple minutes ago.
When somebody wants to put a specification there, you just do pull request again the specification branch, right?
Correct, and do it in that folder.
Yes. Do you have a specific organization in mind, like based on projects? Because I can imagine this is very quickly going to become very messy. So
yes.
Maybe we can use the ZenHub projects.
There is, we can talk about that offline a bit. I know we're out of time, but I will say that if you go down to baseline protocol, you'll see that there's a section on standards already, and you'll see there's actually a document called mainnet. And so that standards folder is right there, and we can start putting stuff into that. And there's already a template of sorts, and there is, Oasis has a tool for specs or standards that we will get wired up with in the next 2 weeks. So that will kick off the heavy duty standards work. And I think that's good because in the next 2 weeks, we'll also have a lot more flesh on the bones from a perspective of use cases. That's all happening. Quite a lot of work going on. So that's it. There is one last thing I'll take 30 seconds to describe, and then I'll let us all off. And that is that there's a proposal to move the TSC meeting and the SSC meeting to bookend kind of a loose sprint type thing. So every 2 weeks, and as we get into like monthly meetings in by June maybe or July, the TSC would say meet on Fridays, and the SSC would meet on Mondays. The SSC would be sort of like sprint planning ish, and the TSC would be a little bit like sprint review ish. And if you can think about that and provide any input, we'll lock that down the next few days. And when we do that in the next couple of 48 hours, that's when I'll send the invites for the next meeting. Right on. Thanks everybody. Thanks for the time. It's good to see you all. Please stay safe.
Thanks, John. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.